We understood two things. One was the importance of the Travis golf course being a public Walter Travis, and then also our belief that we could tie the other property in with that golf course, to kind of create this cohesive 18-hole Travis inspired golf course. And yeah, I mean, it just an incredible experience, incredible place to work, um and yeah, really really glad you guys enjoyed it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Whole Story Podcast. Robbie and Jonathan here. We just had an incredible conversation with Brian Ross, a golf course architect, Jonathan.
Yeah, an architect of a golf course that we've actually played before we had this conversation. So I took him to task on a few holes that I had bones to pick with. I'm still frustrated by two amazing shots that turned into a lost ball.
You know what? It's not his fault, and I think he
Um,
made that clear.
he,
That
he blamed on the
yeah,
original designer.
yeah, it's Walter Travis's fault for sure.
That's right.
No, we talked to Brian. Brian has made his first project, Park Mammoth, which is ridiculous that that's your first project. Because everybody that I've heard has played there, and it's, again, on my bucket list, has said it's amazing and great logo, which figured out he had a little bit of help. But we got to play Great Dunes recently at Jekyll Island on a little road trip, and that place is ridiculous, and it's only going to get better. So well done, Brian and team. Jeffrey that you work with or partner with, he says. Yeah, it's awesome. And so getting to chat with him about that was really cool. I want to go back and play it again now for sure.
Yeah, I say it over and over again, and we talk about this offline all the time. I think golf architects are probably the most nerdy thing I do think about whenever it comes to golf, because equipment, all that doesn't matter to me. I have no idea how to use it, but the creativity, the ability to see it, and you think about Jekyll Island sort of being a vacation destination. This is not vacation golf. This is not like hit it down the middle to 200 and then have a short iron in. It's got some challenging stuff, and whenever you get on the greens, there were more than a number of places where we're like, well, we see why the hole could be put there, but man, that's mean. I mean, there's just, and so,
Well, yeah.
I mean, part of,
I think some of those, like he said, at some point you hand over from architect to
right.
superintendent and his team. So I think when we played, a couple of those pins were probably not in the original design of like, hey, here's pinnable spots that, on this green.
I'm not blaming
he
him,
probably,
but
yeah.
the fact I actually like hard greens. I really, I like
Oh,
the
yeah.
creativity of putting in a way and place that you got to think through how you're going to miss. When you do, you can put it, and there's more than one way to get to the hole. Like,
Well, I love a green that encourages you not to have to hit a straight putt.
right.
Because then you get to be creative, because I can miss a straight putt, but give me a chance to like bend it, and I'll just say, yeah, I didn't bend it enough or hit it too fast or whatever.
I can miss a 3-footer anywhere.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. Well, yeah, Brian Ross, incredible. Not related to his uncle Donald Ross. And I don't believe he's related to my wife's side of the family, the Ross side of the family either. But such a good conversation. He's doing some incredible things, and excited to continue watching his course shaping, building career grow. So a lot of fun. As always, brought to you guys by our friends at Summit Golf Brands. If you use BestBall 20 at any of the Beach Ratty zero restriction fairway and green sites, you can get 20% off your order. And yeah, they make great stuff. We're excited to be partner with these guys again this year. So many, many thanks. Jonathan, any final comments before we hear more about our conversation and your complaining against Brian Ross?
It's not complaining. It's a stern discussion on two great shots that turned into a lost ball.
I will throw this out there though for any listeners. When you go play, go behind the fourth green, and if you
Yes.
find a tailor-made golf ball with the written number
I
23
think it
on
was
it,
23 by the time. Yeah, it already lost
uh,
22 off the first tee
please
box.
reach out. We'll give you something if somebody happens to find that ball. Like need proof that you found it there, something like that. Just reach out and we'll figure something out.
And if you're not on the fourth green, just go across the road to the beach, and more than likely it's bounced
Yeah,
all the
your
way over
family
there too.
who's actually vacationing on the beach will
Right.
probably see it before you do on the golf course.
100%.
What were you going to say?
I was gonna say if you really enjoy golf, getting into the golf architecture side of things is really an interesting thing. And if you haven't listened to our episodes of all the other golf architects, please go back, check them out. I know we're doing some Monday series specials. We have some plans to put that out later on this year where we're going to highlight the architects that we've listened to, but to listen to the thought process and the just the different personalities that sort of show up on the course in terms of their philosophies is really, really interesting, especially if you have an opportunity to play one of their courses or an interesting course, not just your local flat muni somewhere. So take the time to do it. I'm intrigued and enamored every time we have a conversation. So
Yeah, well, for sure. Go play Park Mammoth. Go play
yes,
Great Dunes at Jekyll Island.
yep,
Listen to this podcast, like it and subscribe and give us a good review. Join the Best Ball Golf Club,
there we go.
and y'all have a good day. Enjoy this podcast with Brian Ross. All right, joining us today on the Whole Story podcast, Mr. Brian Ross. Brian, how are you doing today, sir?
Hey, doing great, doing great.
Well, your name has come up a lot lately. Jonathan and I just had the great opportunity to go check out Great Dunes down there at Jekyll Island. Something you're a little familiar with, and we do
Yes.
want to talk about that for sure. One, thank you. It was awesome. And Jonathan, like he said before we started recording, he's got a couple maybe hard hitting questions because he lost a couple of golf balls. He's wondering if you
Oh
have any
man.
insight on, but man, let's start at the beginning. Like when did you start getting into golf?
Yes, I started playing golf when I was 12 years old. I grew up in a very rural area of Appalachia, the western corner of Virginia, and not a big golf area. The county I grew up in, it takes like an hour to drive across it from east to west, and there's 27 total holes of golf in my county, and not much in the surrounding counties either. Just definitely not. It's a very blue collar area, not a lot of golf experience. But when I was 12, my best friend, I don't even know why. I don't remember how it came up, but he was like, "I'm gonna start playing golf," and so I was like, "Well, I am too. I want to do it too." And this is like, pre-internet, rural Virginia. I'm left-handed, which was complicating. I couldn't even find any golf clubs. I was like, what are we gonna do? And so my grandfather, who lived in, about 4 hours away in Virginia, was like the only other left-handed person in my family. And he happened to have a couple of old sets of clubs in his basement. And so took a few of those clubs and cut them down to size. And that was kind of my first golf set. And so what we did is my middle school math teacher wanted to start a golf team at our middle school. We didn't have one before, and so he started hosting, a group of us out at his farm, and so we would just kind of start on one end. He'd give us a shag bag full of balls, and we'd hit them, and then we'd go shag them. We'd walk to the other end, and we'd hit them back, and that's kind of there was a big group of us, like 12 or 15 of us kids that all kind of started playing golf there with him and trying to learn the game. And, we graduated up to the one 18-hole course in our county. And really, by the time we got up to, be juniors and seniors in high school, we developed a, pretty solid little team of golfers that kind of came from nothing there. And we'd all gotten, real sets of golf clubs by then. And I was just taken to it like immediately. It was just like the only thing I wanted to do. We grew up in that era where, they kicked us out after breakfast and told us to be home for dinner. And we'd spend all day outside, even if we weren't on the golf course, we were either playing outside or working on our farm or whatever. And so it was just a, very, um, very obvious path, I think, for us to fall in love with golf because of what it is, outdoors and with nature and, in a pursuit that's difficult and, challenges you physically and mentally. And so yeah, just kind of kept after it, tried to become the best golfer I could. By the time were juniors and seniors in high school, we were traveling to play some golf in the summers. There was a big tour, junior golf tour in Tennessee at the time it was called the Vince Gill tour, and they'd host tournaments all over the state, and so we'd play in some of those in the summers, and I played in one particular event at Holston Hills Country Club in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I played that tournament. I played really well, but also it was just like the golf course was so much different than everything else I'd seen. The stuff we grew up playing was laid out in a cornfield by a farmer kind of golf courses, just draped on the land, and seeing that golf course, like, was really the first experience where I was just like, man, that is so much different than everything else I've seen. Like, why is that? And so I'm looking at the scorecard, and it's like designed by Donald Ross, 1925 or whatever the year was. And I'm like, my dad's name is Henry Donald Ross. And my grandfather, his name's Henry Donald Ross. I'm like, am I related to this guy? And so got home that evening. We, got on our dial up internet computer and just tried to learn, like, who's Donald Ross, like, what is he about? And I'm like, you can actually be a professional golf architect. Yeah, that's crazy. And turns out we're not related. Unfortunately, that would have been pretty ideal. But I did learn that, yeah, you can do this stuff for a living. And I came out of the office that night and I told my parents, I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be a golf architect. And so yeah, just ever since then, just kind of been the goal.
Well, clearly from a teenager to becoming an actual golf course architect, there's a little bit of pathway between those two things.
That's
So,
right.
because obviously it's a little bit more technical than I have an idea in my head, and it seems to be from the other architects we've interviewed, it's a lot more technical than I can run a bulldozer. So,
Mm.
where's the journey that you start in that process, and then we'll talk about it here in a little bit. Someone actually gives you the opportunity to be that guy, because
Yeah, yeah. So
that's a leap.
yeah, no doubt. Yeah. So, I knew I was going to go to Virginia Tech. That's like the only school I was going to apply to. It's like where I wanted to go. It's where my parents went. It was just, no doubter for me. I didn't know what I was going to study yet, but so after I determined I was going to be a golf architect, my dad spoke to some friends or work colleague or something, and he was like, "Well, I think landscape architecture seems to be the path that all golf architects take." And so we scheduled a visit and went up to Blacksburg and, met with the chair of the landscape architecture program. And he had actually worked as a design associate for an architect in Wisconsin for a time, like right after, before he got into academia. And so that like cemented it for me. I was like, well, that's what I got to do. I'll do this and, learned a lot in the landscape architecture program. They definitely didn't they didn't allow me necessarily to just focus on golf. I'd kind of um, make my own program essentially. Took a lot of horticulture classes, took a lot of soils classes, took a couple of turf classes, just trying to kind of build um, my understanding of what golf is. And at that time too, I'm working as a cart boy at the country club there in town. I'd spend a summer, on a greens mower or mowing fairways and things like that. Just whatever I could do to kind of be part of golf and be in golf. And after college, took a job as an assistant pro and kind of went down that path for a bit. So trying to learn the operational side of things and, just really trying to give myself kind of a, well-rounded understanding of the golf industry as a whole. And after that, got into golf construction, and I worked for a contractor for several years, traveling all over the country doing renovation projects. That's kind of where I taught myself how to shape and learned how to build a golf course properly. After that, kind of got out of golf for a little bit, after the financial crash in 2008, 2009. I went to work for a building architect, and wife and I had just gotten married and moved out to Austin, Texas. And so I did that for a few years, kind of out of golf, but I was still still driving, toward golf, being in that on that side of things. We learned a lot about the permit process and learning how to deal with municipalities and how to do site plans and work in AutoCAD and all that kind of stuff. And so it was still kind of pushing me in the right direction. And finally in 2017, I got a job as a design associate for an architect in Pinehurst, North Carolina, named Richard Mandel. So went to work for him and spent a couple of great years there, kind of learning the golf business, learning how to be a golf architect, learning what that takes from a design perspective. Again, working in AutoCAD, more an office job, I think, than what I wanted. I've always been, again, drawn to the outdoors and and to getting my hands dirty and being outside. And so, once I kind of felt like I understood the business side of things, I felt like I was ready to kind of put my own shingle out and do things a little bit different and be a little more connected to my projects, be a little more on site and active in the process of not just the design but the construction. And so 2019 kind of, without a project to start with, just kind of took a leap of faith and started Ross Golf Design.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, you could probably play off that name for sure. And
It doesn't hurt.
my wife's maiden name is Ross, so I might have to look up and see if there's any Donald Ross connections. I don't think so. Her dad grew up in Uniontown, Pennsylvania,
Mm.
so probably a few hours north of where you grew up, but
Mhm.
definitely in that Appalachia area. So, um, but all right, so you start Ross Golf Design,
Mhm.
and you like being out there doing kind of everything. What was that first project that said, "Yeah, let's give Brian a chance to do something for us"?
Yeah, so, I had done a couple of really small things right after I started my business, like, with Mr. Mandel, we did, I was doing a little bit of shaping with him. We'd gotten a couple of clients who were interested in doing some in-house projects, and so the first thing I did was go basically after we moved back to Austin, Texas, and, in 2019, but then I kinda went immediately back to Florida, to do this kind of multi-year phase project that we had been working on together. And so I finished that. And then I'm like, well, now what? Now I got to convince somebody to hire me to do a project. Right. And so, started out with a couple of really small things, like built a couple of greens in this guy's backyard, did an artificial turf project, did a really small bunker renovation. And, all throughout this, I'm basically trying to do what I think makes the most sense as a business. It's just like, you got to let people know you exist. Like, nobody's going to hire you if they don't know you exist. And you got to get to know people because you don't have the portfolio yet to just, be able to show them that. Like, nobody's going to call me and say, hey, I want you to design a golf course. You're going to have to go get it. And so, I would spend a lot of time during the week. I'd, just looking up, like, if I found a news article or something about a golf course that had been sold, I'd reach out to the new owners and just be like, hey, do you need any help? If I could find an email address for them, I'd send an email. If I could find a phone number, I'd call them. If not, I'd try to mail them a letter, and it like never worked. It just completely striking out, but I kept doing it and I was persistent in it. And finally, that winter of 2019, I get a hit finally. Like, I send a letter or an email to these guys, and they just bought a golf course in central Kentucky, and they got back to me, responded, and it was like, and then so then, a couple weeks after that, I just kind of happened to find myself nearby. And, I said, oh, I'm going to be in Nashville. I'd love to come up and see the place, and got up there. We hit it off, and he hired us on the spot. It was like, yeah, why don't you come up with a concept plan for me? And that would have, eventually that's what became Park Mammoth Golf Club, which was really my first real golf project, first big thing that kind of got me off the ground and running.
Well, Park Mammoth is one of those that is on my bucket list, and I
Mhm.
know probably not enough people know about it.
Agreed.
I was doing a road trip this summer, and if I hadn't had a friend respond to say, "Hey, yeah, I can play in Nashville," like, I was heading to Park Mammoth and I was going to
Mhm.
show up and go play because I'd heard so much great stuff about it. And then even since then, I've had a couple friends that have gone through and they absolutely love it. So, man, how about that for your first project? That's awesome.
It really, it evolved into that. It started as something else, and it just, kinda there's a lot of, people say you make your own luck, but there was a lot of luck involved in that one. There was a lot of fortunate turns of events that kinda led to what that for that to become what it did. Um, you know, Notwithstanding obviously that, this all happened in 2020, which was, pretty much the toughest year of
Yeah.
most golf architects' lives, and I just happened to have gotten the right project at the right time, and it's a really a remarkable story about the discovery of that golf course and the reinvention of it. It really is a cool story to be able to tell, and obviously I'm so thankful that I was able to be a part of that. And I've worked out there 4 times now, and over the last 6 years, and it really kind of pushed me up a level quicker, probably than it would have happened organically.
You say it's a lot of luck though, but the reality is, luck is just preparation that meets opportunity, right? I mean,
That's right. That's
you
right.
spent on top of, and listen, sales guys, I'm sitting here so excited when you're like, I just started calling people and emailing people because I want. How many courses did you reach out to over what period of time until that first one wrote back?
Yeah, I mean, it would have been about 9 months, I guess, probably from when I started the my company, all right, April 1st of 2019 until basically it was like the end of the year or the very first week of January of 2020 when I finally got that hit from those guys. But yeah, I mean, it was easily 100 for sure. I mean,
Right.
in all, during that time, I'm still doing other things as well. I'm visiting, just showing up at courses, asking if I can walk it, just trying to again, just trying to introduce myself to this area where, I didn't grow up in Texas where I was. So I was, trying to prospect work there, but understanding that you can't just be local doing what we do. So, having to put yourself out there and make road trips and try to put names to faces and just get anybody who's willing to say, hey, why don't you talk to this guy? All right, yeah, okay. Um, but yeah, it was a whole lot of striking out again until I didn't.
Yeah, and
Well,
those conversations, I'm sure between you and your wife at some point where she's like, "Hey, listen, these other jobs are running out."
right.
When exactly? And I'm sure in the back of your head you're thinking, "What did I just do? Like, I've got a
Listen,
family."
it's worse than that. Yeah, I was in December. I'm in December in rural Oklahoma doing a little bunker renovation on this 9-hole course. I'm sleeping in the women's locker room of the clubhouse. I'm thinking to myself like, gosh, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Like this isn't where I saw things going, and it was there while on that project that I had made that outreach attempt, to the guys in Kentucky, and it really did change the trajectory big time.
That's awesome.
That's
Well,
great.
let me ask this because you got Park Mammoth, and we'll talk here about Great Dunes at Jekyll in a minute. But
Mhm.
and you've got other projects obviously in between. What is your style? Like, do you have something that would say I am similar to this guy or this group, or is it just kind of you kind of created your own? Like, how would you describe your style when you're creating or restoring a golf course?
Yeah, I try to take a well-rounded approach. Again, I visited and studied and played and toured hundreds and hundreds of golf courses, and over the course of my really not my life so much. Again, I started out in kind of a non-golf area. Didn't see a lot of golden age stuff when I was a kid. Didn't see a lot of great architecture, what I would call great architecture. But really, once I got up professionally, I did, and I started, again, making those kind of unannounced visits, or just trying to schedule these longer trips where I might see 10 or 12 courses, and just trying to figure out like what I like about golf architecture, and what I've found is kind of married back to my experience as a kid where I just love courses that are draped on the land. I don't like to move a lot of dirt. I like to be a minimalist where I can or when I can't, to make it look as though I am. I'm certainly, even though I never was able to work for any of these guys, certainly have modeled my company um, after guys like Tom Doak and Corin Crenshaw and Gil Hanse and the way they operate. Where, you know, again, I will take fewer projects to be able to devote more of my time to each of my projects. That's incredibly important to me. I think that you can design something really good perhaps on paper, but it's not going to be great unless you're out there kind of getting the details right in the field. So again, in terms of methodology, that's incredibly important to me. But I've always just been drawn to the golden age work because again, they weren't able to move a lot of dirt. They didn't have the equipment, they didn't have the resources that we have today to do so. And so a lot of those courses just feel like they fit the land properly. And I'm a big believer in like place-based architecture is what I call it, where, you know, my golf courses in Kentucky are going to be wildly different than what I might do on the Georgia coast or that I might do in the desert or in Texas. I really try to make sure that I'm focused on not just the golf, but the entire experience of that golf and making sure you're having, really authentic experience with that piece of land. And that's what I think the golf courses from the original golden age of golf do so well.
I love that. Well, let's get into then Great Dunes at
Hmm.
Jekyll Island. So we had the opportunity. We just took a little road trip. We had an event out in Florida. And it's again another one of these that's been on the bucket list for a while, especially with it opening up in November after you finish your work, and
Yeah.
so we were able to get a tee time. We made it there, and of course, it was cold and it was windy, but it was awesome. So, tell us about the experience getting to work on that project there at Jekyll Island.
Yes, I'll give you a little bit of backstory. So in 2017, I kind of just started with Mr. Mandel and Pinehurst and Jekyll Island. The entirety of the island is a state park, so all the land is owned by the state and is leased out. There's homes, hotels, restaurants, golf, soccer complex. All these many attractions of a beautiful low country state park, and they had put out an RFP to do a master plan on all their golf courses in 2017. And so we pursued that project. Back then, did not get it, but I had been out there and I'd seen it and I knew there was something there. It was really it was everything was hidden. It was kind of under 50 years of kind of neglect and overgrowth and weeds. It wasn't really being maintained as well as it could, but you could see that there was something there. Like the land was good enough underneath there, and even though we didn't get the project, I followed along with it. They did a renovation of the Pine Lakes course there in 2023, and then the RFP came out for the restoration of Great Dunes, and so I was in Pennsylvania at the time. I was working with Jeff Stein, who's a very close friend of mine, a guy I've collaborated with many times. We both, about the same age. We both started our companies around the same time. We operate very similarly. Have a great working relationship, and Jeff's done a lot of work. He's worked for all those guys that I mentioned earlier that I modeled my company after. He's done work for all those guys and has worked in sand a lot. It was just a no brainer collaboration for the two of us, and I convinced him to pursue it, and we went after the project, feeling as though we're probably pretty big underdogs, but let's just put it out there and see what happens. And we were fortunate to get it. It's I think what we did and why we got hired over some guys with a lot more notoriety and experience than us, but I think we got it because we understood two things. One was the importance of the Travis golf course being a public Walter Travis. There's not very many of those, only three. And, so a lot of people aren't able or haven't experienced his work. And so, that being part of it, the restoration there, and then also our belief that we could tie the other property in with that golf course to kind of create this cohesive 18-hole Travis inspired golf course. And some of the other architects that we were competing against for the work didn't take that approach. They're kind of changing the routing of the Travis course, and which we vehemently said, no, we're restoring everything. Whatever it was, we're going to put it back like it was, and that played well, and we were fortunate to get hired for that project, uh, and yeah, I mean, it just an incredible experience, incredible place to work, um, and yeah, really really glad you guys enjoyed it.
Well, let's talk about that because it's not very often that you get to talk to the architect, and I've got a bone to pick with you, all right?
All
So
right,
I'm
let's
on
hear it. I
number
can take it.
4. I've literally got my Arcos pulled up right now. I'm on number 4. I hit this beautiful drive, 276 yards,
Mhm.
and I'm 225 out, and I've got to go in between the mounds, right? For number
Right.
4 over. I hit this striped 5-iron. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's going right, it's splitting the gap, and we go over there. Is my ball in the ocean? I'm pretty sure it hit the green. And to be fair, this has not necessarily to do with architecture. It is a brand new course. It's a
Right.
little hard. It was cold. Those types of things. But man, I'm so disappointed at that point. I mean, I'm not. It's not like I hit 2 good shots on an entire day. So both of them happened on a hole where I lost the ball. Uh, no, but seriously, you talk about like trying to restore and do those types of things. How do you where do you visualize those shots whenever you're out there and thinking, "We're gonna move this a little bit, we're gonna set a tee box here, we're hoping that the lay of this land is gonna entice someone." Because there was another one. What was the one Dave talked about was it on the back nine, Robbie? It was number 10 or 11, where if you try to approach it from the right-hand side, there's almost no way to get to that green. You've gotta be down on the left. So, like, as an architect, are you working through that mentally, trying to think through, how am I gonna trap this 15 handicap into giving this one a try?"
Yeah, we definitely think about that kind of stuff. On those particular holes that you're mentioning, though, I mean, it's like, look, that's how it was. We put it back exactly like it was, essentially. Like, we did add a back tee on 4. That was kind of part of our way of connecting the 2 courses. That's where you made the jump from the Dick Wilson course, the previous course that was on that property, the Oleander course, over to the Great Dunes, is in that spot going from 3 to 4 and then back from 12 to 13. And so, yeah, I mean, but really, those the 2 fairway bunkers that are on that hole were there. The dunes, we didn't do a single thing to the dunes except strip off all the vegetation. I mean, if you got I don't know if you've ever seen a photo of it or if you guys saw the course before, but I mean, it was pure, like, trees and underbrush on those dunes, to the point where, like, if you hit a ball there, you wouldn't even think about going to look for it. I mean, it was as dense as any jungle in the world, and the whole dune was covered with that. So, like, you knew it was under there, but you couldn't see it. And so, the only thing we did there, was strip the vegetation, flip it, get the sand back to the surface, and then, chunk on top of it to try to keep the sand from blowing all over the place, which, is gonna be a battle we're continuing to fight over the next year or 2 until we kind of figure out where the sand's blowing, where it's coming from in different winds, and then we restored the green, basically exactly like it was. So what we found out there on the 9 Travis holes that we have left, there were 2 original greens, and the other 7 had the original green pad, but then had a new green, essentially, like a 2,500 square foot oval built on top of it whenever they had renovated the course previously, I think in the 70s when they installed the irrigation system. And so all we did, and we had to do this on number 4, was basically to start on the edges where we knew the shoulders were, and we just started excavating down. And what we found was, when they had built the greens originally, because again, this is pretty much pure sand out there in the dunes, that they had imported a layer of thick organic material, really black dirt, probably that they pulled out of one of the lakes or something, and created like a 6-inch layer of organic material, and that's where they were able to grow the grass for the putting surfaces. And so once we figured out that, over excavating over multiple greens, we kind of figured out, okay, there is a consistent depth to these things, so let's just get back to it. And so we scraped and scraped until we got kind of that consistent, um, layer of 6 inches of dirt. So, yeah, that's a tough shot. As architects, we definitely think about that, like, "Hey, this is a reachable par 5,
It was.
but should you try to reach it?" That's the question.
Yes.
Or
It
is it
was
better to lay back and have a wedge in your hand, and you're probably pretty safe getting on in 3, and, so, especially out there with the wind, it can be that hole can play very long if the wind's coming off the ocean. It can be pretty reachable if it's kinda the standard coming out of the southwest wind. Um, but and so we do have to think about that, and, like, number 10, I believe, is the other one that you're thinking of where, you're kinda dead if you're right. You got trees kinda hanging over from the dune and pretty blind approach shot where, you're taking the shortest route to the hole if you play up the right side there, right? So if you do play up the right, maybe you're 10 yards, 15 yards closer to the green, but you're gonna be completely blind hitting one end of that bowl, or you take the slightly longer, safer route out to the left, and so, yeah, we definitely think about all those kinds of things. It's just that on those 2 particular holes, we were just putting back what Walter had given us 100 years ago.
man, just blaming somebody else. I can't yell at him
That's
that I
all.
lost my ball. You're like, wasn't my fault,
Listen, it's
man.
always someone else's fault.
When you design something, we've asked others before. I mean, there is a way with your designs that golfers should be able to play the course, and it should be relatively easy, correct? But then you do things
Right.
like, I don't know, eye candy or tease people of, I think I might be able to pull this off, where that's when you'll bring in the trouble, right?
That's right, yeah, you have to use a lot of tricks, to try to challenge a really good golfer, right? Someone who can hit the ball straight down the middle and they know what yardage they're hitting all their clubs every time they hit them. Like, you gotta have some kind of um, visual deterrent out there to at least put a thought in their head, like, "Oh, maybe this isn't the right play." And, but at the same time, there's always a path for the weaker golfer to ping pong their way up to the green. And, there's some water out there. There's some places where you can lose balls, just with the kind of the native nature of the edges. But I'm telling you, like, compared to what was there, I mean, we really stripped the forest and the undergrowth and pushed all that stuff back. I mean, it was much more difficult before, believe it or not.
Well, it is certainly getting some incredible reviews
It
from
has, yeah.
anybody and everybody. I know you've got to be excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's on any golf project. It was the same at Park Mammoth. You get done and you're like, "Gosh, I think this is pretty good," but you have to wait until you get that honest feedback from the golfers. And yeah, it's a really nice feeling when they kind of confirm your suspicions. And yeah, we've gotten some great press. It's still a young golf course. You mentioned the firmness of the greens, and I think the greens are generally going to be firm out there just because of how much the wind blows and because it is such a well draining surface. But they're those are going to soften up a bit over time as you get an organic thatch layer built up on the greens. And but it's going to play bouncy. It's going to play linksy because it's got that subgrade that you desire as an architect to be able to work on those types of surfaces. But yeah, I mean, incredible response. Feel very fortunate, very proud of our work and thankful that we were given the opportunity.
Well, in our foursome, there was more than one conversation on almost every single green of one was the guy put in the hole today, break up with his girlfriend last night. And then two, just the creativity of where you could put holes
Mhm.
and like great approach shots, interesting turns, levels from the back to the front,
Mhm.
even almost hidden ways. We were fortunate to play, or I guess Dave maybe had heard about it, where he's telling us tips. Like if you miss here, it's just gonna go completely sideways. And so as the ping pong golfer of the group, it was both frustrating and fun all at the same time. So I guess that you sort of achieve what you're going for.
I think we did. Yeah, you know what? Walter Travis was an incredible green builder. I think having having studied a lot of golf courses, I really am drawn mostly to him and Barry Maxwell. I think we're the two greatest green builders of the golden age. And when we started the process, Jeff and I took Noel Jensen, who's was the deputy executive director of the Jekyll Island Authority, and he was kind of the project manager essentially from the owner side of things. And I told Noel, and this has been back in, I guess, 2023 when we were kind of just starting the planning process. I was like, we've got to take you to see some Travis courses. I was like, I swear, like if we get out there and start building what we think Travis greens are, like you're gonna run us off the property. You're gonna tell us to get out. Like so Jeff and I took him up to New Jersey and New York and we saw a few examples of Travis. And I personally saw the light bulb go off in his head on the very first course. And then the stuff that we saw after that was just re-emphasizing that, hey, that's how this guy built greens. That's what our greens are going to look like out here. They're going to be a little more challenging than the public
Yeah.
golfers used to, than the other courses on the island, the other courses in the area. But I was like, that's what Travis built. That's what we should give the people. Again, there's 3 public Travis golf courses. This is really one of really the only one that's been, fully restored, I guess you could say. And it was really important to us and to the island to be able to offer that experience of a public Travis to the public golfer.
Do you,
Now I got to find the new ones. Road
yeah,
trip.
we got to find the next ones for sure.
Mhm.
Yep. Do you, throughout the process, do you get your clubs out and kind of take her around and say, hey, here's where I would hit shots? Or, I mean, I'm hoping you get the opportunity to play it, play any of your courses when you have an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, we play dirt golf every day. I mean, every evening we're hitting some shots out there. At Jekyll, we were super fortunate. They had 2 other courses, so we'd go play out there. A lot of evenings we'd try to get 6 holes, or we had a nice four hole loop. Or occasionally we'd have time for 9 in the longer months. But yeah, dude, we hit a lot of golf shots out there, and we had between our entire team, pretty wide array of golf. I used to be good at golf, so I know what it's supposed to look like, but then I'm also not good at golf anymore. And so I know that side of things as well. And then we also have some scratch golfers. A couple of our shapers were really, really good players. And so, yeah, we were able to kind of hit some of those shots and test some things out, especially some of the fairway bunkers. We wanted to make sure, again, that those things were challenging to the better hitters, but then, that someone like me could still get around. And, yeah, we do that a lot. It's a very important part of the job.
What's it like at the end of a project? You've spent years, if not months, thinking about it, planning about it, out there moving dirt, not sleeping in women's locker rooms anymore, but still, like, it's your baby. But then, because we've talked to other architects, and then at some point, you literally have to hand that over to someone else to take care of.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah, that's a tough thing to do. It's like sending your kid off to college or something, right? It's
right.
you put a lot of trust in the people, and of course, you've gotten to know them very well over the course of the project, and if they're capable or not. So sometimes it can be a little stressful for sure, and it's always a sad day when you're kind of done with the project because I could tinker with something. I could be right down there right now, like tinkering. I'm sure I could find something that I could improve or fix, right? And there's lots of great stories of other architects who did that. I think that a big reason why Pinehurst #2 is so well revered is because of how much time Ross spent out there tinkering. And you could talk about Pete Dye at some of his projects, or Nicholas at Muirfield, or there's lots of great examples of that, of guys who kind of been given free reign to kind of continue to evolve these properties. So when you don't get that, though, you got to turn it over, and you don't end the relationship by any means, right? I was just talking to those guys yesterday. I'm actually gonna swing through there on Saturday, as we head to Florida for our spring break, and just stop in and say hi and take a look around. And it's a constantly evolving thing, and a golf course is always changing, especially out there where the sand's blowing around. We have to, we've put up some of the dune fence that you guys probably saw out there. That wasn't there when we left, and they've had to install some of that, and we knew they were gonna, and so we'll review that and see if there's other areas where we need it, or maybe somewhere where they put it where we don't need it. And yeah, you just continue to kind of watch it grow, just like a kid. You watch it grow up and mature, and and just hope that people are having fun enjoying it.
Well, if you get out to number 4, there's a tailor-made ball with the number 23 written on it. It's my 23rd lost ball of the year, which that's a whole separate issue of my golf game so
I'm not
far.
sure it's number 4 that's the problem, but
Listen, 2 great, I'm telling you, 2 great shots. Great drive, great 5-iron, but if you have I've spent a lot of time on number 4 of those dudes looking for golf balls. If you happen to find it, I'd appreciate you let me know. Uh,
I will definitely keep
It,
my eye out. Yeah, it's like playing golf in the fall around here. Like it's the best
oh
time of
yeah.
year. It's when you want to be out on the golf course, and then you lose your ball under a leaf, and you
oh,
just can't see it at all.
you lose
it's very
s
frustrating, but part of
spectator
the
ball.
game.
Yep. Well, like Jonathan was saying, once that project's done, there's others. So, how many are you juggling right now, and kind of what's next for you guys?
Yeah, well, again, we definitely intentionally keep ourselves small. We don't want to be trying to be in 3 or 4 places at once. Jeff and I are not. We're not married. We're dating exclusively or maybe very strongly, and we're pursuing work together. There's a couple things that he does on his own, smaller things in New York, or he's out in California right now, helping work on the Olympic Club, the ocean course with Jim Rubina, who he's got a great long-term relationship with. And we're very happy in the way we collaborate and work on things together. We do have 2 projects together, new builds in Kentucky. Right now, I can't exactly go into too many details on it. One's in the Louisville area, I can say that. But we're definitely still actively engaged in pursuing work together and doing work together. And yeah, we're starting to get a little bit of momentum going. I think, at Park Mammoth, it's the first course that I'd done, and um, I think from a prospective client perspective, they might look at that and say, okay, yeah, he did it once, but can he do it again? Can he do it for me? And so I'm hoping and feel confident that Jekyll was kind of the proof that we can, and is certainly leading to more opportunities for us in that market. And of course, we're also still doing, restoration work and master planning for clubs, and pursuing that type of work as well, because it's equally rewarding to be able to kind of help improve or bring something back to maybe an era when it was better. But then at the same time, there's nothing quite like a new build and getting to route a golf course and for it to be, really your creation.
Do you have, and we'll start moving towards the end, do you have like a book of holes that you've drawn out that you're like, if I get a plot of land, like here's some options?
No, nothing really like that. I mean, I do have, some stuff in my sketchbook, things that, if I'm visiting a golf course, see a feature, say a green or something that I really like, I'll sketch it out real quick in the field. And um it's really more mental for me. I don't certainly nothing like a photographic memory, but I do remember a lot of things that are impactful, that I've seen somewhere, and I'll be like, I'll see maybe a piece of land or, a certain feature within that land, and something will come back to me. I'll just be like, oh, this looks so much like this green at this course. Let's riff off of that. Let's kind of start there and see what happens. Obviously, always trying to keep in mind that you want to be original, and you're not trying to be copycatish. You want to pay homage to something that you think is great, but then also put your own spin on it. But yeah, it's definitely more mental than having like a physical hard copy for me.
Love it. Well, let's get back to a fun few set of questions here
Sure.
as we wrap up. The first one, and you've played golf, so what is the story of your most memorable golf shot?
I've never made a hole in one, but I have holed out for eagle on a par 4 and a par 5, and I think the first time I ever did it, I was very young, and I was the only other person in my family who golfed was my older cousin. He was 7 years older than me. He was like my hero growing up. He was always we lived very close to each other, and he was always really good to me. And so we played golf together, all through my teenage years, and I got better than him very quickly. And he hated that. He was very, competitive just like I was, and he was beating me on our home course, and he didn't beat me very often at this point. And I holed out for eagle on this par 5 from about 120 yards, and I had the wrong club in my hand, and he convinced me to change clubs, and I changed clubs, and I made the shot and ended up beating him that day. And I think that's probably the most memorable golf moment for me.
That
Yeah.
nothing
Made better because of who you were with, for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
no
As it
nothing
always is. Yeah.
nothing better than beating your cousins too,
Oh my
so
gosh. Yeah. He's
alright,
gonna
and
be sore if he hears this.
you made it famous now. Another thing we wanna jump into, we call the quick 9. So the first question is, what is the favorite course that you've ever played?
Oh man, gosh. I've been fortunate to play so many great golf courses. So let's say Sandhills, I think probably. Even though
Yeah,
I tend to appreciate the golden age more. I just there's something about that place that's magical.
I've heard that place is ridiculous.
It really is, yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, you might not have any left, but what course is at the top of your bucket list?
Oh gosh, yeah, I do have a bunch. I mean, I'm fairly well traveled in the states, but haven't done a whole lot of not too much international stuff. So got a little trip planned um, to the England Heathlands later this year. So excited to see like Sunningdale and Swinley Forest and Walton Heath and some of those great Heathland courses in England. So I guess I'll go there.
Sounded
Nice.
good. What is the favorite course that no one knows about?
I mean, besides Park Mammoth, some of some things jump to the top of my head. Maybe, some people maybe know about them, but kind of underrated golden age stuff is kind of, I guess, where my head might go. So, uh, what's a good one? Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, again, I try to spend a lot of my time looking at stuff that people people do know about. Now you stumped me on that one, huh?
It's not your home course in the Appalachians, is it?
No, no. I mean, you'll have an experience there for sure, but it may not be an enjoyable one. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's the Great Dunes too. Maybe it's something I've done. I mean, it's getting a lot of press, but I think most people haven't seen it yet. So hopefully everyone will get that chance.
Yep, for sure. All right. Who's in your dream foursome?
Dream foursome. Yeah, let's throw my cousin Freddie back in there because it's been a while since we played together.
Take that,
Um,
Freddie.
yeah, yeah, and oh, let's see. Let's put Bobby Jones in there, I guess assuming it doesn't have to be someone alive,
Nope.
and we'll put Uncle Donald in there as well.
Uncle Donald. I
Yeah.
love it.
Uncle Tom. That's great. All right. What is your favorite snack at the turn?
I love a good hot dog or Snickers bar. Hot dog or a Snickers bar, those are the go-tos.
Do they
Frozen?
ever ask when you're building a new course? They ever ask you, "Hey, what would be the perfect item to serve here at the turn?"
No, I don't get that, no.
No. All right, Brian's hot dogs served at the turn. I like it. All right, favorite golf course logo.
Oh boy, there's some great ones. I think maybe, Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah.
Nice.
That one
Yeah,
gets mentioned quite a bit. That's
that's
a
a
good one.
source
Park
name.
Mammoth has an incredible logo.
Part
I
Man was
will.
great. Yeah, thank you. I
Yeah.
kind of had a part in that one. I didn't do the final logo, but we did kind of get started on that as on our side, and then we kind of handed off the idea to a graphic designer. But
What has been your favorite pro shop purchase?
favorite pro shop purchase, gosh, I don't buy a lot of merchandise, things like that. I don't buy a lot of golf clubs at pro shops. I'm a collector of scorecards. I don't really have to purchase those. That's kind of my go-to thing versus logo balls or something. I guess I'll say my first Park Mammoth shirt just because it was mine. It's something that I created.
Yeah.
Nice. Hey, when you swing by Great Dunes this weekend, tell them to put the actual flags that they're using out on the course. Tell them to sell those in the pro shop.
I know I'd like them to do that. They gave us one and we all autographed it and everything, but the ones they're selling
Oh,
there are different. I know.
such a cool flag, and it's
I
like
know
I
I
want
think it'd be a
this.
hot cake. I
Oh
don't.
yeah, for sure,
Yeah,
for
I'll work
sure.
on that.
Tell
Yep.
them about Flag Bag Co. because then they could turn those into head covers and everything else
Oh
for them
yeah,
too.
true. Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yep. All right. What is one thing golfers should do?
One thing golfers should do, I think, just take a moment to appreciate, where you are. Don't get too stressed. Don't overthink, and just try to enjoy and have fun in the 4 hours you get to spend outdoors, and just be appreciative. that it's there.
except for the lost
Love
golf
it.
balls. And then
And
the last,
you gotta look past this. That's part of the fun of it.
the last question here. Finish this sentence. The best part of golf is.
It's the people.
That's awesome. Brian, this has been a treat, man. Like Jonathan said, it's one thing to get to go play these great courses that are out there, but two, it's extra special to get to talk to somebody that has built the thing or restored it or whatever. So,
Mhm.
thank you for joining us today to tell your story.
Yeah, really enjoyed it, guys. Thanks a lot. It was a lot of fun. I love doing these type of podcasts and just hearing about other people's stories and their investment in golf too. Again, I think that really is what it's about. It's just
It,
the
it's all
people you
about the
meet
people,
along the
man.
way. Yeah.
Yep, all about the people. Well, if anybody out there is looking for a great person to build or redesign or do some fun things, you reach out to Brian. We'll make sure to have links to your website and everything in the show notes.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it if Great Dunes and we need to go see some of the other ones, but if Great Dunes is a testament, then you're doing some awesome stuff. So man, keep it up.
I appreciate it, guys. Yeah, let's get you out to Park Mammoth next.
Let's
See
do
where
it.
it all started.
Let's do it. Well, for Brian and Jonathan, this is Robbie. You guys have been listening to another episode of the Whole Story Podcast.